This is the weekly Firecast, Episode 3, interviews with Brian and Marilyn Meagher of HotSauceDaily and Ed Currie and Pepper Joe.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. Now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
All of you foodies, chili heads, hot sauce fanatics, and barbecuers, I bid you welcome to the podcast. I'm Scott Roberts, your host and chief chili head around these parts. This week, I have a double feature when it comes to interviews for you. First up are Brian and Marilyn Meagher of HotSauceDaily.com, which for 5 years running has been an excellent spicy food and barbecue blog. And they also have a podcast that you may or may not have heard of called Hot Sauce Weekly. And then later in the episode, I will talk to Ed Currie of Pucker Butt Pepper Company and Pepper Joe with a new super hot chili pepper that they're debuting called the Carolina Reaper, otherwise known as the HP22B. So you get the scoop on that, so just hold on tight, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, a few housekeeping notes. A couple of listeners have asked me about the music that I use in these podcasts. No, it is not stock music. It's created by a guy I discovered a few years back. His name is Finn, and he is a blues slide guitarist from, all places, Oslo, Norway. I caught a few of his tunes, and I absolutely fell in love with his playing. It's such a raw, dirty, raucous, nasty slide guitar sound. And, of course, I mean all that in a good way. And it just plain kicks ass. So I contacted him sometime back as I was in the middle of restructuring the video version of the Firecast, which, of course, has turned into the audio version, which you're listening to. And I asked him if I could use his music for the stuff, and he gave me his blessing, thankfully. If you're interested in hearing more of his music, you can Google his name, Finn, F-I-N-N. The thing is, he puts a colon in front of his name. You know, the two dots, the punctuation. So in order to find him, you have to type in : Finn slide guitarist. And of course, he has numerous sites such as MySpace, which contain his songs. But instead of Googling, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put the show notes both on scottrobertsweb.com or twoguystalking.com/Firecast. And I'll put up the pertinent links for you to follow and discover this amazing guitar player from Norway. You don't want to miss this guy. He's great. And speaking of music, there is a new podcast on the Two Guys Talking podcast network called Blue Marble Radio. It's hosted by Andy Clayton, a St. Louisan who was born in Australia. And the show focuses on one musical artist per episode and, in my opinion, strikes a great balance between interview and song playing. If you want to discover cool new music and hear the musicians behind it, check out Blue Marble Radio at twoguystalking/Blue Marble. I'd also like to give some shouts out to a few gentlemen. A few months ago, when I was in the process of thinking of revamping the video weekly Firecast, I contacted a number of sauce and product manufacturers to kind of give an intro, saying, this is blah, 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 and you're listening to the weekly Firecast. Well, 3 guys went ahead and recorded short little video snippets of them saying that. Of course, I was going to use them to tack them on the beginning of the videos, kind of as, a little advertisement just to kind of help out some up-and-coming product manufacturers. Of course, that never came to pass. I went ahead and revamped the show to the format you're listening right now, audio, just to make up for the hard work that these guys put in, just recording the little video clips for me as a thank you. I want to go ahead and mention these guys. One is John Rosati of Rosati Foods and his Rippin' Red Wing Sauces. As a matter of fact, he played a little cool metal guitar on his intro, and I want to thank him for that. But I want to go ahead and throw him a little love for his terrific wing sauces. You can find those at rippinred.com, and I'll put these links in the show notes, just like the other ones. Second is Jeremy Walsh of Big Fat's Hot Sauce. He has a line of 7 different hot sauces, a wide range of flavors and heat profiles, and you'll definitely want to check him out at bigfatshotsauce.com. And last but not least, there is Timothy Bader of Volcanic Peppers, and he deals a lot with the pepper powders, the seasonings, some ultra hot sauces. So if you're into the extreme heat, He's someone you want to check out. His website is at volcanicpeppers.com. Yeah, sorry I wasn't able to use your intro, gentlemen, but hopefully this little mention of your companies will make up for it. Thank you very much. And then this past week, there was some very sad news in the fiery foods world. Peter Seymour, otherwise known as Chili Pepper Pete, passed away at age 56. Very sudden. Found out he had cancer. And it was something like 3 weeks before he passed away that he found out. And it just goes to show you that, just like that, something could happen that could take away one of your loved ones. And if you're not familiar with what he did, he was very instrumental at spreading the word and love of chili peppers in the UK. He started the Fiery Foods Chili Festival there in the UK, which is held in Brighton every year. So he's survived by his wife. He had 4 children. Our thoughts and prayers are with them in this very sad time. To kind of show your support, be sure to go to Chili Pepper Pete, and that's spelled it the British way, Chilli, pepperpete.com. He has some great pepper products, good, and even if you're on this side of the pond in North America, purchase a couple bottles, show your love, send them your emails, show them your support, and again, very sad news. We'll always remember Pete.
And now, the review of the week.
Here's a product that definitely belongs in my top 10 list of favorite, not just hot sauces, but any kind of condiments. Top 10 of all time. And I did a blog post a long time ago. I contacted a number of chili head friends and sauce makers, people well known in the industry. It was hard for me to pick out a top 10. I ended up doing like a top 11, but this definitely had to be in there. And from what I remember, a number of other people had put this in their top 10 as well. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Captain Tom's Chili Company Thai Monkey Sauce. Now, just imagine the best soy sauce you've ever had, or the best teriyaki sauce that you've ever come across. Combine that with elements of just a stellar all-purpose fantastic hot sauce. Add a little hint of wasabi, and then add the incredible taste of peanuts. Roll it all into one, and you have, I think, is the perfect Asian sauce. Now, this isn't just for Asian cuisine. It's also fantastic on just regular chicken wings. It's just a great dipping sauce. But if you have Chinese, chicken fried rice, beef, pork, if you have noodles, if you are just eating sushi, I mean, the possibilities are endless with this. It does have a little bit of salty taste, as you can kind of guess from a soy/teriyaki sauce. But it is so perfectly, so well balanced, it would just amaze you. And the often mentioned umami taste sense, I would say this rates a 10 out of 5 on that kind of scale. The heat-wise, on a scale of 1 to 5, I would probably give this in the neighborhood of 2, 2.5. But for the chili heads out there, I would say it's at your all-purpose go-to sauce, your table sauce level of heat. Not too terribly hot, a nice medium, but the flavor will keep you coming back and coming back and coming back. And Captain Tom, I did interview him a while back. I forgot exactly how he came up with this product. I had to go back and listen to that. But I don't know. He just stumbled upon, I think, one of the great Asian-style sauces of all time. Again, this is called Thai Monkey. And if you're interested in getting a bottle of this, and I highly recommend it, go to CaptainToms.com. Obviously, I would have to give us a 5 out of 5 rating. Just absolutely remarkable, top-notch, top-shelf stuff here. I cannot speak highly enough about it.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
All right, the first interview in this double feature, I talked to Brian and Marilyn Meagher of HotSauceDaily.com and HotSauceWeekly.com. How you guys doing?
Great. It's good to talk to you, Scott.
You too.
Hey, Scott.
It's funny because we're like switched roles here. I'm interviewing you guys now.
Yeah, now you're in charge, huh?
That's right. I'm in the driver's seat. So for everyone out there who's unfamiliar with you guys and your website, why don't you just give everyone a little bit of history on Hot Sauce Daily?
Yeah, HotSauceDaily.com is our main site. It's been running since about 2007, and we review hot sauces, barbecue sauces. I like to post recipes and all kinds of spicy info, appetizers and beverages. And
and talk about grilling and things that we've done at home and trips we've been to. We like to cover the festivals and the hot sauce shows and barbecue competitions and stuff. So we cover a pretty wide range of items, but all has to do with food and savory flavors and spicy heat.
Now, when you first started this, I guess what was the idea behind it? Did you just find a need to just convey your love for spicy food and barbecue?
Well, I kind of got it started. Actually, before we met, I was doing this. And Hot Sauce Daily came out of my need to be creative. You know, I've always been a musician, and I've always created music and had fun doing that. But as far as doing anything online, you know, I'm a geek anyway. And oops, Marilyn's just signaling me. I'm fading, aren't I?
Yes.
I was trying to think back. I just wanted to write. I kind of dinked around with a couple of blogging platforms and fell in love with WordPress. And I was already into hot sauces, not to the level I'm at today, but I mean, I liked my hot sauces and barbecue stuff. And I thought, you know, I looked around on the internet and saw a couple of the old school guys that are still around, yourself included, were inspirations to me. And I guess back in 2007, you know, we had the stalwarts, Joe Levinson and yourself, all writing about hot sauces. And I thought, well, you know, there's room for another one. So I came up with Hot Sauce Daily and just have a lot of fun writing that. It's a labor of love. It's our hobby. And we've turned it into quite a social thing with yourself, and everybody that gets together at the different gatherings. We're looking forward to one coming up real soon in Bauer's, PA. So it's a great fun hobby for us, and that's where we're at.
Some people like ballroom dancing. We like writing about hot sauce.
I've actually never done ballroom dancing, but yeah, I've eaten a hot sauce or two, or a bottle. But yeah, it's great that you mention the getting together with the other bloggers, the whole community, the camaraderie of it. Is it something, I guess, you knew about getting into it? Is it just something you've kind of slowly discovered?
No, when I started writing Hot Sauce Daily, I had no idea about gatherings other than, you know, the really big one out in Albuquerque, and I think I knew of Houston Hot Sauce Festival, but that was about it. So being in the community, in the chili community now, that's when I started picking up on all the other different festivals. And we don't get to travel too far too often, but luckily there's more and more closer to the middle of the country or on the east side of the country than there used to be. So no, that was that I just kind of learned as I went along.
What I like about you guys is you have your own unique slant, your own angle at viewing things. There was a lot of barbecue and grilling on your website. I mean, sometimes I've looked on Hot Sauce Daily just on the home page, and half the stuff is barbecue related. And just being a big barbecue fan, I love that. That's not something you see on a lot of the other hot sauce or chili head blogs.
Well, thanks, Scott. You know, it's our love of the things that we do, you know.
And we've really turned the whole project into a real team effort. Quite often, we'll do a review together where we give especially when we differ, that's always fun to write about a given sauce or product and have different viewpoints just between Marilyn and I. You know, like you said, it's our different slant on things.
Now, in the beginning, it was just you, Brian, writing?
Yeah, it was just me.
Okay.
Because Hot Sauce Daily came about before we met.
Oh, before you and Marilyn met?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we're fairly newlyweds.
When did we meet?
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, we met. He was in the hot sauces, but he wasn't writing about them. He was fiddling around on the different boards and stuff online, mentioning things and giving people feedback. But we actually met in 2003 and got married in 2005.
Well, then Hot Sauce Daily's been around since 2007.
Yeah. So it became formal. And I remember a lot of discussion that we had about what it was going to be called and what the icon Little Pepper Boy was going to look like. And we had people help us with that, including you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
So, yeah, it's been a labor of love. But, of course, it started out with Brian's passion, and then he just kind of sucked me into the whole thing.
Yeah, she's known as Hot Sauce Chick.
I remember, how the Hot Sauce Weekly podcast started up, and we can get to that in a second. But I remember when you introduced Marilyn, I think she just did the intro, and you had Randy Combs for, the first 10, 12 episodes?
Yep.
And then you featured Marilyn more and more. And I think that's where the partnership is just, and adding the woman's voice. And I think that's what really made it unique. And that's one of the best things that I love to hear about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I thought, of course, Scott's talking about Hot Sauce Weekly, the podcast that we started. and is currently in a suspended state of animation. Yeah. But, when I brought Marilyn, Randy and I had a lot of fun getting the podcast started, and he's a great guy, but he really had an underpowered PC, and our connections were always crappy, and I really wanted to take the podcast in a different direction anyway, and I knew Marilyn had a really nice voice, so I brought her in a couple of times and decided, yep, I like this format. I like her and I and doing the interviews together. So we had a lot of fun doing that. Mm-hmm. Put out 50-some episodes plus a bunch of other little mini things. The beginning of the summer, just got so busy here. I live in a resort town, and my job is a federal job and gets very busy. I'm a letter carrier. And the podcast just got put aside, and it's in limbo right now. Don't know what I'm going to do with Hot Sauce Weekly. I don't want to let it go. We got some shows coming up, so I'll probably do some audio for that and stick it out in the pipeline, whether anyone is still subscribed to it or not. I hope they are. It just kind of sits there until something new shows up in your iTunes. So not ready to let it go yet, but I want to, I guess right now, take this time to congratulate you on getting this project underway and filling the need for a podcast version of all the stuff that we love to talk about and eat.
Yeah, we're really glad you're running with that. That's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, for a couple of years now, I've been wanting to do something, and I tinkered around with the video, and I don't know if you guys have ever tried video. It is so hard just to sit down, and you not only have to worry about audio, but the video, and then the rendering, and the graphics, and the editing, and, leaving it run overnight on your, laptop or whatever, and you wake up in the morning, you find out that there's an error or something. It just takes a long time. It's like, well, I'm just going to go with audio. It's just something I could bang out any time of day. I'm not, saying it's too easy to do. I mean, there's still, a lot of editing and putting pieces together. But, I just want to get my voice out there somehow. But going back to your podcast, there is a great catalog of episodes. You said 50-something episodes, and I urge everyone to go to HotSauceWeekly.com. Just take a look at some of the interviews you've done and some of the features you've done at various shows. I mean, there's a lot of great subject matter on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of content. I think a lot of it's timeless, and it's still out there on the internet for, new people coming along that are just discovering podcasts and doing a search for food and hot sauce and stuff, and hopefully stumbling upon us. So, yeah, that's, at least it's there, for archival purposes. But and I hear you about the video. Video is a ton of work, and you did a great job on your video weekly Firecast episodes. But I know it was a ton of work. It just looked amazing. You really did a good job, and now you're doing a great job with your podcast. So keep it up, man.
Well, thanks.
And I want to tell people too, when they go back to HotSauceWeekly.com, that they'll also hear Scott Roberts interviews as part of our show.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I want to leave that out. So anyone listening to this that either hasn't heard Hot Sauce Weekly, Scott was a regular feature on our show doing hot sauce reviews for us, and you did it wonderfully and like no one else could. And we thank you for all of those, those bits of reviews you did for us.
Yeah, you're really, really amazing. And just for you to crank out those reviews in the short period of time that you did was just fantastic. Or you don't know how you found time to do all those.
Sometimes I just did it late at night. Just off the top of my head, what sauce? Oh, here's one I really love. And when I did the reviews for the Hot Sauce Weekly podcast, if you go back and listen to them, most of them are some of my favorites, 4 or 5 star reviews. I just wanted to get word out about some of my favorite products I'd run across. Probably 80% were like that. But it was an absolute pleasure, doing the reviews for you guys. I thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of the very first podcast on hot sauces and fiery foods.
The world's first podcast.
The world, yes. The universe's. How about that?
Which is really something when you consider all the people that are out there doing things, with their video reviews and their written reviews and stuff, to say, this is the world's first podcast devoted to hot sauce, barbecue, spicy foods, is really kind of heartwarming to know that Brian was able to put all that together and really be an innovator in that field.
Marilyn's getting all girly on us.
Warm and fuzzy.
But I will say one thing about the audio podcast. It's so much more portable than a video.
Oh, definitely.
You can listen to it anywhere, anytime, in the car while you're driving. You can't really do that with the visual stuff. So
And what do you think about things like, and I'm just going to go ahead and bring up, the show like Eat More Heat. I mean, they do a good job with their live video shows, and then there are just hundreds of YouTube videos, people eating peppers, eating the hottest hot sauces. What do you think about the whole visual aspect of things?
I think it's kind of time consuming, and you get a lot of content out of it sometimes, but you can't really go back and pick up the pieces that you can with an audio podcast. I think that the visual adds something to certain population that have the time to sit and look and explore through it. But times, even though we go to visit the sites or we're in the chat rooms, we go and do other stuff. While that's happening, we might listen to it, but we're not going to sit there and watch the whole thing.
Well, back to your question, and you mentioned Eat More Heat, their show that they do on Stickam. I think they're two different worlds. I think the live show on Stickam, Greg Reppy's Barbecue Central show, that's one world where you're getting an entertaining chunk of time, a half hour, an hour, and you're invested in it. You're going to watch it because it's like a TV show, if you will. Whereas the videos, the short videos, and some long videos of hot sauce reviews, I'm using air quotes here, those I think is what Marilyn is alluding to. I think that whole genre of video hot sauce reviewing is oversaturated, and a lot of them aren't very well done. And I don't need to spend. And this topic has come up on Facebook on the Chili Heads group, and I think Buddha probably posted the question: would you rather watch a video review or read a written? And that's probably been up a couple of times. And I usually chime in and say I'd rather read it because I can skim it, I can get through it, or I can click away to another link that's in that review to another review. Boom! I'm consuming information and I'm getting what I need. To watch 4 or 6 minutes of one talking head talking about the sauce, it's not always helpful to me. I don't want to put anybody down, but if we're talking about the subject, I do see a lot, and Scott, you tell me if you don't agree, I see a lot of folks doing the hot sauce review because they're having fun, they want to do their YouTube thing, and that's all great. But the bottle will pop up in front of the camera briefly, and they'll wiggle it, and then the bottle disappears because they're putting it on a spoon. My point is, for most of the 4-minute video, you don't see the product, and you don't see the name. So, that's just a thought from a consumer's point of view that you guys are doing videos. I need to see more of the product and maybe some graphics, some subtitles, a little more work in the project, and make that 4 minutes really pop and bang instead of languishing sometimes as they do. Well, that was a long-winded answer.
Let's just move on to the HotSauceDaily website. Do you guys? What are your future plans for the site? Are you planning to do anything new, or just kind of keep chugging along as you are?
Yeah, no, chugging along. We certainly have a backlog of product to get to review, and new stuff coming in all the time. So, status quo, just kind of a mishmash, back and forth with hot sauce, barbecue sauce, and any spectacular recipes we might come across.
Mm-hmm. Lots of grilling.
Yeah.
Just smoked a couple of pork butts yesterday, so we've got some pulled pork ready to go to try different sauces and rubs on. So we always like to have that backup of product to be able to review something effectively, instead of saying, here it is on a spoon, which we do a lot of that too. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I evaluate sauces, too, by itself, and then I try to find some food. But it's always good to find something, you have a lot of pizza on hand, or you have a lot of pulled pork, as you mentioned, to try stuff on. So that's always beneficial.
We actually made that, the pulled pork we did yesterday, I did 2 butts, so about 12 pounds of meat. It ends up being about 6 pounds. We vacuum seal it in little 8-ounce packages, and then we pull one out. But the ones we did yesterday, we did completely plain. No salt, no pepper, nothing. Nice tasting pork, but really kind of plain and boring. But that's okay because the whole goal was to have a really plain product. So I'm going to try some rubs on it. I want to try some sauces. So that's a different way of doing things for us.
One thing I wanted to mention, and I think you had already mentioned it before with the Bauer Chile Pepper Festival. I don't want to make this interview too dated or anything. I kind of want to keep it evergreen. But of course, we are in the midst of Chili Pepper Festival season. Tell me where you're going to plan to be in the next few weeks. You're going to be at Bauer's, correct?
Yes, we're going to be at the Bauer Chile Pepper Festival in Pennsylvania. And then in October, our plans are to attend Weekend of Fire.
Jungle Gyms, yeah.
It's pretty awesome. We didn't get to go last year, so got the new van. We're going to be doing a road trip, and looking forward to spending some time with our chili head brethren.
Including me.
And you.
And those are the only two we can get to. I'd love to be able to go to Houston, which is coming up real fast, but that's just a little too far for us, and we've got a budget, so we're lucky to be close to Bauer's, and Ohio's not too far. And then, of course, we had over the summer we had Peppers.com, Chip Hearn's Pepper Store. We had that festival, so that's about it for us this year.
Yeah.
We will be going to Cambridge to the, what is it called?
Gras.
The Krabby Gras in Cambridge, and they feature a lot of hot sauces there. There is a store there that has hot sauces. In fact, Captain Tom of Captain Tom Sauces had judged one of the food competitions there year before last, I believe. So he has a lot of product in their store. And we're looking forward to seeing a lot of our chili head and barbecue friends down there.
That's Cambridge, Maryland.
Yeah.
Cambridge, Maryland. Okay.
Really,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about an hour drive from us.
Okay. Yeah, and that's not a show I'm really familiar with. What are the details on that?
Krabby Gras, Carbigars, so I guess it's a play on Mardi Gras. Basically, it's a crab-oriented little festival in Cambridge. But
this year they're calling it Oyster and Hot Sauce.
oyster.
That's the focus this year is oysters and hot sauce.
Second or third year.
I think it's at least the third.
Yeah.
It might even be the fifth or the sixth.
Fairly new festival that we've not been able to get to yet. But we met one of the guys that run it at Peppers, and he's got a couple of sauces that he puts out. Don't remember names.
But we'll be there at Cambridge, Maryland in a couple of weeks. So well, that's actually in October. We'll be there. That'll be after Weekend of Fire. So we'll be doing that close to home, and we'll let you know how that is since it's our first time that we'll be going there. But it might be a possibility to discover some new, more local hot sauce manufacturers. So that'll be pretty cool.
And that's always good. That's always a plus of going to a show or event or festival or whatever and just discovering, some brand new manufacturer who just makes sauces just slightly different than everyone else and just coming across some really good finds that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So is there any last minute things before we get off of here that you want to promote or say or?
Well, you want to talk about video hot sauce reviews? We did.
I'm always ready for hot sauce reviews.
Yeah, a good point that you just made about stumbling on new manufacturers at events. It's always a lot of fun. At Peppers alone, gosh, we found 3 or 4 we didn't even know about or maybe heard about. Because a lot of the hot sauce folks aren't on Facebook. They're not on Twitter. They're mom and pops, and they're out there making great products. But we don't see them online until we meet them in person. So that's a lot of fun.
And then, of course, we're looking forward to seeing you in October.
Yeah. So, just visit HotSauceDaily.com, everybody. Drop us a note. The contact info is there, and we'd love to hear from you if we're doing something you like. And we get a lot of comments from people that, like the review I did, and they say, well, we went to this guy's website and we bought a bottle, or we bought 2 bottles. That's awesome. We love to hear about that.
And
that's the fun part.
And we've been getting a lot of feedback from old recipes that we posted, stuff and reviews that we posted years ago that people are just now finding, like the sriracha wing recipe, which I know you just love, don't you, Scott?
I tried the recipe. It's not too bad. I'm not a big fan of sriracha hot sauce by itself. I just can't pour it on my Asian food. It's just too salty, too pungent for me. I guess that's the right way to describe it. But in your recipe, it's pretty good. One thing I love, and I use this recipe all the time, is your Mega's taco seasoning recipe.
Hey.
Yeah, that's
fantastic. Good.
It's a great way to make up some taco seasoning. It makes a couple of cups. It keeps forever. And yeah, thanks.
That's great to hear, Scott. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you just make up, double the amount of whatever is on your website. Keep it in a, airtight container or a baggie. I think you mentioned on the actual recipe page, you'll never go back to those packets again. It's just so much fresher tasting, so much better tasting.
Less salt. So go to HotSauceDaily.com and just search for taco seasoning. That'll be the first hit.
And it's endorsed by Scott Roberts.
That's right.
Of ScottRobertsWeb.com.
Well, very good. Well, I thank you again for appearing on this would be the 3rd episode of the Weekly Firecast audio edition. This is Brian and Marilyn Meagher. I'm speaking to of HotSauceDaily.com. Visit their site. Go to HotSauceWeekly.com. Listen to some of the past episodes. There's just a lot of good content on there.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. We really appreciate it. We're very honored to be part of your Firecast.
Well, it's an honor talking to you guys.
All right, take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks again to Brian and Marilyn for that great interview. Those guys are the best. We're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, we're going to have the second feature of our interview double feature, Ed Currie and Pepper Joe. We'll be back.
Hey, Dexter Podcast fans. We've had a ton of feedback about our podcast efforts and wanted to invite you to the newest piece of the Two Guys Talking experience, Two Guys Talking TV. That's right. Now you can watch us live as we record all of our podcasts. It's all available live via the web right now. Get literally under the hood with Two Guys Talking as we edit down podcasts, punch out great custom website work, custom cartooning, and a ton more. It's never been easier to enjoy the creation process and to share and revel with all the cool behind-the-scenes fun with Two Guys Talking TV. Check it out now at twoguystalking.com/TV. We look forward to interacting with you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon via Two Guys Talking TV.
Fight Ribbon Clothing Company. Clothing and fight gear on a mission. Fight Ribbon is the original MMA clothing company built from the ground up for fighters and fans. Clothing with a purpose. The new face of cancer awareness. Fight Ribbon Clothing Company. Because what you wear matters. Visit fightribbon.com.
You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we're back, and here's my interview with Ed Currie of Pucker Butt Pepper Company and Pepper Joe of pepperjoe.com. Ed, Joe, good to have you on the line here. Let's go ahead and start with Ed since you're on the top here in the Skype feed. Why don't you introduce yourself, give me a little bit of background on you?
Well, I'm Ed Currie. Live in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm married. I have a beautiful daughter. I love growing peppers. Been doing it for over 30 years now. Really interested in the super hots, and I'm just enjoying life right now.
That's good. And then Joe, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everyone a little bit about you.
Okay. Hey, Scott, and hi, Ed. I'm Pepper Joe, of course. I've been in the hot pepper business for 24 years now. I've been growing hot peppers for about 40. Just thrilled to be here. We're real excited about this big rollout.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I guess I'll ask you, Joe, what are, I guess, a big overview of what you actually sell and deal with?
Okay, well, we sell all the super hots and a large variety of hot peppers. I like to think we have all the popular ones. We're rolling out a new line of hot sauces and gourmet sauces late in the summer.
That is this summer that is occurring right now, or are you referring to next year?
Maybe around. Actually, we've put our full focus into the Carolina Reaper. Probably in September we'll have the hot sauce and line of gourmet sauces ready to roll. As a matter of fact, I'll send you some, Scott, so you can do a review.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, let me go ahead and ask Ed, as far as the Pucker Butt, a nice name. How did you get started with doing that?
Well, actually, I was my wife runs the female half of the Charlotte Rescue Mission, and since I'm a Yankee, when it snows down here, I get to drive for everybody. I took a load of church women to kind of like a seminar in Greenville, South Carolina, and they were all laughing about when they had my hot sauce or my salsa, it made their butt pucker. And I blurted out, if it doesn't make your butt pucker, it's not a pucker butt pepper. And we got the name there.
So how did you get started making hot sauces?
Well, actually, it was again my bride. I made some hot sauces back in the 80s when Dave's stuff came out, Dave's Insanity, and there were some other gourmet sauces. There in Birmingham, Michigan, a hot sauce store opened on Main Street in Royal Oak, and I was just amazed at all the sauces in there. And I said, I can do that, and I had already been growing peppers, so I started making them then. I went off for a while on a tangent, and when I got back into it, it was because I saw the woman that I'm married to right now at a meeting, and she wouldn't have anything to do with me. She called me a funny little man, but she said, yeah, she did. I introduced myself. She said, "Who cares?" And I kind of on all the ladies back then. I overheard her say she liked salsa, and I had a recipe for some peach mango salsa I made back in the 80s. And I knew she was going to be at a party the next weekend, so I went searching for peppers. I found an Indian store up in Charlotte. I got the peppers I needed. I got peaches, mangoes, and made some salsa. And the next week she asked who made it, and I slid right in there. We were married like 9 months later.
And the rest is history, I guess, as they say. So let's go ahead and jump to the main topic. What you're rolling out is the new HP 22B pepper, a.k.a. the Carolina Reaper. As most people who are listening to this know, there's been just a huge horse race as far as the world's hottest. The Buchalokia, a.k.a. Ghost Chili, was certified by Guinness as the world's hottest pepper 5 years ago. And then we've had all these other peppers, the Infinity Chili, the Naga Viper, Trinidad Scorpion Butch Tea, and then another one that just came along early this year, the Trinidad Moruga Scorpion. There's been a lot of testing, a lot of hype, a lot of news as far as the hottest pepper. Now, you guys have been developing this new one. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I actually started developing these peppers because I'm doing a little bit of research on cancer and heart disease, and I got back into. And what the focus was to make a good tasting pepper so that people who were, so that people would eat them, and maybe it would help with preventing that horrible disease. But two, that people who are doing chemo are actually suffering from it could stomach getting a super hot in. Because I truly believe that whole peppers are one of the keys to battling cancer. I truly believe that. But I started doing it a long time ago, about 11 years ago on this particular strain, 11 now. And about 8 years ago, we got a pod that was making people throw up, okay? And I knew I was onto something, so I looked around for a university to do some testing. Most of them wanted a $4. I happened to stumble upon a man who wanted to collaborate with me, and I called a college 600 miles away, and it turned out the man who answered the phone was at the college 2 miles from my house, and they had all the machinery I needed, all the lab equipment I needed for my test. We started testing that pepper, and the first year's test came back at 1.275 million Scoville for an average. And I was just amazed. Everybody was like, wow. At the time, the only thing in the record book was the Buchalokia, and actually the million test. Really, no one's been able to ever duplicate on that pepper until people started breeding super hots. That was just, it's around 1 million. Everybody wanted to put it into Guinness, but I talked to Dr. Calloway, and he said, let's see, you might have this might be a fluke. Let's see what happens next year. And we've been able to, over these years, actually get that Scoville rating on statistical average. Up the fourth year, it was up at 1.474. Now, at the time, the Butch Tea hadn't come out yet, so it was above the Naga Viper. From the studies I've been able to find, and I might be wrong, believe me, I'm no genius as far as that goes, but the studies I've been able to find, that the peppers that are going out there as the hottest are one-offs. They're not using averages. They're not using the whole of the test. And we were like, okay, we're confident. At 1.474, we've got a good number. 4 years of data behind us, let's submit it to Guinness. Well, Guinness wanted a whole lot of stuff from us, and I personally think it's because we're Americans, but admitting it, we did the fast track thing. They asked us if we wanted an adjudicator, and then they asked for more data, and we've just been working on the more data with that. Now, the other peppers that are out, please do not get me wrong. What the Moruga did is an amazing feat. I know what it's like to make a pepper in over 2 million. The Butch Tea is an amazing pepper. Those men are good men. I'm not dissing anybody in this community. I just feel that the science that's being used is not. We should be using statistical averages like the AC says to. We should be using whole peppers. The stem, the cap, and the fruit, not just the fruit to measure Scoville. It's the methodology that we're using. So we're getting ready once again. I think we're going to add the 5th and 6th year numbers into what we're submitting to Guinness, and Dr. Calloway's going to release all of it for peer review too. I'm hoping that we'll have a little higher number just so there's a bigger average. But a lot of people out there want us to play the one-off game and release our high numbers. Like I said, I've told others before, I really don't want to get into a battle of egos, because I didn't get into this to go into Guinness, and I did not get into this to be a rich man. I got into this to help others, and I truly, I don't get into a battle of egos or get involved in drama on the blogs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said you had 4 years of averages. About how many generations for this pepper has there been?
This specific pepper has been growing in a greenhouse now for 8 years. I've been doing every time it produces, I get those plants out of the greenhouse and start seeds again. The botanists over at the college said that I can say it's an 8th generation just because that's how long they've been looking at it. Mm-hmm. We've actually been doing 2 crops from seeds for 8 years straight now inside the greenhouse. And Joe visited the greenhouse. He can tell you that's not, it's amazing what you can do with trash, eh, Joe?
Well, the thing I was amazed the most about the greenhouse, Ed and Scott, was the amount of buds and flowers you had on every pepper plant. I've been growing hot peppers for 40 years. And I don't know how you did it. I guess it was from pruning them back and, the way you fertilize them. But they were just, Scott, I've never seen anything like it. It looked like a million snowflakes on every pepper plant. It was,
mm-hmm.
it was really something else.
So I had a question for you guys about the chili pepper itself. How did you initially develop it? Is it a hybrid of, say, a Buchalokia and a scorpion together? I guess the follow-up question to that, at what point did it become a stable pepper in and of itself?
Well, the 2 parent plants, honestly, okay, until all that rigmarole last year when Lakeisha released the 1.474 information, and I'm glad she did. It got her a great job, but I didn't know there was a chili community out there, and I didn't know I was going to be getting calls calling me a fraud the next day, Since then, some members of this chili community have gotten with me. I'm not ready to release where the parents came from because we're doing DNA on them, because so many people have said that I've stolen their plants. But the plants I started with over 8 years ago. We didn't start replicating the same looking pod, and I'm gonna say same looking until 8 years ago, and we've only been replacing with the seeds from that similar pod. Now, by horticultural standards, you can get a stable plant using greenhouses anywhere between 3 or 5 years. I wasn't comfortable releasing anything or releasing seeds until this year because really we've been going 8 years and we're getting the same thing. Joe wanted me, when Joe and I first talked, he's like, let's go tomorrow, let's release this thing tomorrow. But I wasn't willing until we had 8 years of data behind us, because that's kind of the standard for the horticultural community. So,
Scott, I have to give Ed a shout out on this. The patience that Ed Currie has, which I'm the opposite. I'm not that patient, but the patience and the meticulous approach he's had to this and his attention to detail, he really is doing it right. I'm just thrilled to be part of it. But the team he's assembled as part of the group that we work with and the whole process that's been involved, believe me, as the details come out, and Ed's way more qualified than I am to cover the detail end of it, I think the whole chili head community will see this is really a pepper to be proud of and take to and be enamored with and want to grow. It's really a very special pepper. And one thing Ed said about the comparisons to other peppers, I just want to address this. There's been some comparisons and looks to this pepper and that pepper and the Primo. Common sense dictates that if you look at anybody's list of the 5 hottest peppers on the planet, the Primo doesn't show up in that list. And it's a wonderful pepper. I love to grow it. I love the flavor. But as far as heat goes, it's just not in the top 5. So for us to now have what's going to be the world's hottest pepper, just because there's a little similarity in looks, and Ed can allude to the lobe shape and the different texture and some other dissimilarities.
again, up until about a year ago. Well, when Jim Duffy, who was the first one who said that's a 7-pot primo, and I was like, are you talking a 7-pod? What's a primo, And I'd only heard 7-pod because a guy named Ted Barris reached out and said, hey, is that a 7-pot? And I had no idea there were all these things out here that people were doing because I was playing with peppers in mine in like 8 other yards and out in some small farms that I rented because they were no longer farming. I really had no idea that there were these hardcore chili heads. It's just me and my friends.
Ed, I got to tell you, I didn't know it either until maybe a year ago I stumbled on the site. I've just put some of the Naja Morich 7-pot on my website in last year's, update. The average gardener has no clue about all this. If you talk to the average gardener, they know a cayenne pepper, they know a jalapeno, they certainly know a habanero, and above and beyond that, they know the ghost pepper, which has a great recognizable name, and Buchalokia. Some of them they know the Bush T. The Moruga is starting to get some recognition in the last 6 months, but beyond that, all these names and varieties outside of the hobbyist and the real hardcore chili pepper enthusiast, I'd say 95% of the gardeners have never heard of any of those other peppers. Never.
I agree. To me, it's almost a lost cause when trying to keep up with all the varieties and strains and all the names out there. Seems like every year there's like 10, 15, 20 new ones. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but it seems like there's so many new ones that come along. It's like, well, how does this different than the next one? A big injustice that the flavor of the pepper is lost in all this hype of the world's hottest. Now, I know you've been developing the HP 22B to be a really tasty pepper, and that really thrills me. I can't wait to get my hands on it, to try it and to cook with it. In my opinion, the Scorpions, they're a little bit too bitter. They have too much of a acidic kind of floral taste to them. I enjoy the Buchalokia because they have a more of a sweeter citrusy flavor. Now, when it comes to the flavor of this new one, how does it compare to other peppers?
I've only eaten about a dozen pods, Scott, but I see a couple of amazing qualities to it. The taste is at the top of the list. I would describe as citrusy, fruity, a little bit of a chocolate undertone, but it's pleasant. If I had to pick one word, forget hot. We all know it's hot. It's the hottest pepper in the world. But it has a pleasant taste. It enhances a dish. I've had it with chili. I've had it with spaghetti sauce. Just today, my fiance Penny made some turkey chili. And I shaved a couple of thin, tiny slivers, into the bowl. And it enhances the dish. It makes it better instead of just adding heat. And then the growth pattern of it, as I mentioned earlier, it looks like a white Christmas tree with light bulbs that are all white, just blinking on and off. And you can speak to that. I'm not just patronizing anybody. The amount of chilies on that plant were astronomical. I've never seen anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Joe. As far as flavor goes, let's go with the who has tried it, who has had others. We've been able to get some nice Jalokias. I actually got some Jalokia seeds from Joe, and I enjoy the flavor too. But everybody who's tried it, who's out there in the community, has all commented about that it's got a new it's just actually tastes good. Then they're crying. I don't know if you've seen any of Ted's videos. I gave him a few strains to try, and it was crazy. But to your point about you can't wait to try it, your peppers are on the way. They'll be there tomorrow, I think. They're going out to about 8 other people who I really trust, who they've shown integrity. A lot of people out there attack me and then send me emails saying, hey, let's trade, let's do this, let's do that. These people all have integrity in the market, and as far as I'm concerned. So that's, we'll get reviews on flavor. I can't wait for you to taste this. To me, it's like I've been eating them for so long. I don't get sick, or I don't, it gets really hot, but I eat them every day on everything. One, because I don't want to die. My family has a history of heart disease and cancer, and I hate watching people die from this. But two, I just enjoy it. The taste of this pepper is amazing.
And Scott, let me tell you a funny story. There's a lot of chili head enthusiasts out there today, and it's a growing community, and gardening's the #1 hobby in the United States. So we all love hot peppers, but there's nobody out there that loves them more than Ed Currie or Pepper Joe. So we had a breakfast meeting 2 Saturdays ago, and we met at the Cracker Barrel. And out comes Ed with his little, baggie with maybe a dozen peppers in it, and they're all different shapes and colors. He takes them out, cuts them up on a plate. We put them in our eggs and our omelets and our bacon and sausage and on the bread. He had to warn the waitress because she picked up the plate where some of the hot pepper juice might have been.
Yep.
So, this is a passion of ours. Are we out to make some money on it? I hope so. This is my full-time job. But in addition to that, and maybe more important than that, we love hot peppers. And then the other funny story, Scott, the second time I met Ed, he's taking me through the greenhouse, and he pulls a pot off of a plant, and he goes, "Do you recognize this?" I said, "Looks a little bit like my atomic starfish, which I got to see it's from Brazil 1,000,000 years ago." Mm-hmm. And he says, "Yeah, I bought it from you. I think, Ed, he was one of my earliest customers. I don't know if he's bought from any other seed vendor. He can speak that. I think he said I was the only one. But it was my starfish, miniaturized, and he'll tell you what it was married up with. I might guess a habanero, a jaloka, I believe, but he'll validate that or not validate it. But it was my starfish that he engineered into a much cooler, much different pepper, and I loved it when I tasted it. And then the other one was my old yellow jelly bean. One of my first, I started out selling 6 or 8 peppers, and I had the arrogance to call it a catalog. It was a 3-page pamphlet. And that's where Ed got that from, way back in the early Pepper Joe days. And you should see what he did with it. Again, he shrunk it. He married it up with another pepper. He made it hotter. He made it sweeter, tastier. So and I'm not patronizing him. Me and Ed, we're business people. We'll disagree. We'll agree. We'll disagree to agree. We like each other. We're good friends. But I'm not one to patronize. He is created. Today's interview is about the HP 22B and the Carolina Reaper. But when this whole story unfolds and people see the depth and the breadth of his hot pepper collection and the taste and the flavors and the shapes and we're just getting started here. Again, let's get back to the Carolina Reaper. I apologize, I regress, but there's some exciting things on the horizon here, Scott, and I'm glad you're being part of it because you mark my words, it's going to be exciting.
Well, this podcast will probably be released this particular episode in early September. But I just wanted to ask you, when is this pepper going to be available to the public, seeds for it, and when is the sauce? And the sauce, correct me if I'm wrong, is just called the Reaper. When is that going to be available as well?
I wasn't in it. I didn't know I was going to be able to make any money off of this. I put up my own little Google site a while ago selling them, and I put a farmer's market. Okay, I got a team today that is amazing. They want to see me at least get solvent again. But Joe and Bob went ahead and they did a pre-release today on the seeds, so the seeds are actually available today.
Okay.
And then on Labor Day weekend, there's going to be one of the things that I'm doing with the sauce is mashing. People don't like the word mash because it denotes, usually mashes have salt and lime or other things in them. I'm going to release a puree of just the pepper so that they can actually get the flavor, the public can get the flavor without having to wait for the pods. And we'll have that available Labor Day weekend. And then the hot sauce, they're scheduled to get it to us like the middle of September. So it'll be over the next 3 weeks. We'll have everything out. Each of those are going to be coming to you also, Scott. I got you on the list. As soon as they're ready to go, they'll ship straight out to you.
Go ahead and mention your websites that the people will be able to get all the stuff on.
I'm at puckerbuttpeppercompany.com, but make sure you put the puckerbutt as one word.
God only knows what else could come up there.
And, of course, mine is pepperjoe.com.
Okay, gentlemen, any last things do you want to say? Anything else you want to mention about this that you haven't? Anything else you want to plug?
I would just like to say thank you very much for having us on. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to share with the public.
Ditto, Scott. And one thing I did want to mention during the interview, there's a lot of buzz about that we need another world's champion hot pepper. And I feel pretty passionate about that, so I like to toss this out there. You have the Super Bowl every year, you have a champion. You have the World Series, you have a champion. You have the Grammys, the Emmys, the Oscars. Every year there's a champ. So I don't think it's too much in the last 10 years that maybe we've had 4 or 5 peppers that have made the Guinness Book of World Records, or if they didn't go to Guinness to apply, they've had validation, whether it's from or Winthrop University or whether it's from New Mexico State University or, whatever the level is, it certainly is validated, in my opinion, as a champion pepper, and there's been 4 or 5 of them. Is there room for another one? Absolutely. Every one of the champs, and I'll go and from bottom to top in terms of heat, the Ghost Pepper, the Butch T, the Moruga, and now the Carolina Reaper and the HP 22B. They all have a different shape. They all have a different flavor. They all have a different plant growth, pod shape, pod size. I hope there's a couple more in the pipeline in the next couple of years to come, because it gives us gardeners and us chili heads diversity, fun. I can't tell you, Scott, and it was better than I do, the anticipation out there for this pepper to come to market. There's a lot of excitement, and what it does is it brings all positive buzz to our industry, to our community. And I don't want to sound corny, but I'm going to say this, it creates jobs right here in the good old United States of America. Ed's got a whole staff. I'm adding staff to get these seeds ready to ship out, and what we hope is a real big, spike in demand. So it's all good. I don't see any downside to another world's champ, and maybe another couple in the next couple of years to come. It's all good. Can peppers get too hot? Use a little bit less of them. Freeze them, dry them. It's a great value. I mean, you get a couple dozen peppers per plant, and that'll last you for a whole season if you dry them and freeze them. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to value, when it comes to another world's hottest pepper, I just feel so strong about this. Great value, and there's not too many world champions.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for jumping on here and talking with me this afternoon. Look forward to trying these. And again, thank you.
Appreciate both of you in my life. God's blessed me with a lot of good people, and I'm really happy about getting this whole thing going. It's amazing.
Okay, gentlemen, it's been great talking with you. Big thanks goes to Ed and Joe for that interview. And just like all the other links mentioned in this episode, they will be available in the show notes, so you can hop on over to scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast or twoguystalking.com/firecast. And at that later link, twoguystalking.com/firecast, there is a contact form, and I invite everyone to get a hold of me. Let me know what you think of the episode, if you have any suggestions, constructive criticism, if you disagree with me, if you want to see particular topics, items, people talked about on the Firecast, let me know. So be sure to fill out the web form. I'd also like to invite everyone, if you're on the social networks, you can follow me at twitter.com/ScottRoberts. You can like my Facebook page at facebook.com/ScottRobertsWeb. And I'm also on YouTube, Pinterest, Google+. Just go to one of the aforementioned websites, and I have all my social media links there. And I love to interact with people, so follow me, friend me, whatever it is it's called on those particular sites. And, well, I guess that's it for this episode. So remember, until next time, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.